It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Tuesday episode of Two Guys and a Goalie. Nielsen, Gage, and Cass is back after a week of vacation. However, you're in a hotel again. Where are you now, buddy? What's going on here?
I'm in the wonderful land of Winnipeg. So just here for work. Yeah, I feel like I haven't been home in forever. So it's been a busy little stretch, but a good little stretch, and lots of pool time with the kids outside in the mountains. And it's been a good little break. So thanks you guys for covering for me and taking care of it.
Hey, no problem, buddy. No problem. Easy. Are you at the Delta in Winnipeg?
No.
Oh.
Not at the
Delta. Well, I was gonna say your connection's pretty strong, so that's
it's pretty good.
That's nice. Yeah. What's it like getting away to the hotel? Like, I know how it is for me, like getting away with the young kids and stuff. I almost feel guilty when I get to sleep in to like 9 o'clock in a hotel bed all by myself. It's great.
I try, but I can't sleep in anyways. It's too auto-programmed in me. Like, I still wake up and I still got to work. Like, I'm not just sitting here all day doing nothing. So it's like, it's still waking up and, firing up the old computer and getting some work in. So.
Gage, that's a nice shirt, buddy. What do you got going on over there?
Well, it's the what Cass was talking at the old Riverhawks game. We had an Oilers function that they offered some new swag. So I threw on the new Under Armour Oilers alumni golf shirt. So it's pretty. It's nice. Actually, Cass, it's way better than the other one. The other one was a little plasticky feeling. This one feels like that Nike kind of nice light. Barely feels like I'm wearing anything. I keep looking down to see if I'm wearing a shirt.
Right after we get off, I'm gonna send Aaron and Patrick, kind of the two people that run the alumni stuff. I'm gonna send them an email and maybe like, get me one of those shirts.
They got a nice hat too. Got a real nice hat.
Oh, got a hat too.
Oh, and actually there's a long sleeve as well. Oh, it's
long sleeve golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one of those for TSN, and I just don't like it. It's too. Yeah. Well, I like to have my elbows out when I golf. When I'm all tucked into the summer.
It's not going to make a difference, Dusty.
No, it's true. I mean, but from a fashion perspective, right? I'm a stylish guy. Like you said, this Trapper's hat pops today. I didn't realize how bright it is.
So amazing.
I looked on the camera here. It's
a bright one. The goal is to fit into the Cool Bet large golf shirt by the end of the summer.
Good for you. It's good to have goals. Well, and Patty last week when he joined us said they're going to send us some new swag as well. So we'll have another round of Cool Bet swag coming, which will be good. All right, so we got a few things that we're going to get to, and we haven't had an episode since the big trade. So we're going to spend most of the episode talking about Calgary and what they're able to do with Tkachuk and bringing Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, and then we're launching a little projects here over the next couple of weeks here to get you through the summer, which I think is going to be really fun as well. And we've dove into it pretty good already, but we aren't going to start it on the podcast until next week. So we'll get to the franchise 32 here a little bit later on and just talk about as we put those lists together, how fun and maybe how difficult it was. But let's start with the trade, man. Matthew Tkachuk. It kind of looked like it was going to be the end. There was a list of teams that were out there, and then bam, Friday night, I'm doing a CFL game, and the email comes out, Tkachuk traded to Florida for Huberdeau and all this stuff. Cass, what'd you think of the decision by Calgary to pull the trigger and send him to Florida?
Well, if you knew he wasn't going to resign, this is like, I mean, I look at it and I know Huberdeau is not signed long-term, but this was about as best as you could possibly imagine them salvaging something. Like, I was shocked, not in a bad way, in a good way. I was like, this is amazing. What an amazing trade. I think for Calgary for Trevelyan to actually get this done, huge for Calgary, because if you look across the league and pretty much anywhere else, like where else are you going to get a Huberdeau to replace that?
Yeah, it's not happening.
It's not happening. No one else is going to give that up. And so I was blown away by it in the best way possible. I think they did a great job to actually get this done. Now the kicker is going to be, can they sign him to a long-term deal? Like that's going to be the big thing, because if they don't, then they're in a world of hurt. But it certainly, for this season at the least, really, really salvages. You bring in two players, not just Huberdeau. You bring in two players which is massive. And obviously, it was contingent, I would assume, on Tkachuk signing that long-term deal with Florida.
Yeah, got that deal done. Yeah. Signed it with Calgary before the trade, so he could get the extra year.
So he could get the extra year.
Move.
Yeah. Which is obviously why they did it that way. And so a great job by them wheeling and dealing to be able to do that. Man, what a crazy trade! I love it. I wish trades like this happened more often. I think it was awesome.
It was huge. It was a legit, straight-up NHL blockbuster. You just don't see these types of deals, like 2 100-point guys traded for each other, regardless of contract status, and we'll continue to dive into that as we talk about this. Gager, what it does do for Calgary is not only does it keep them extremely competitive this upcoming season, it does give them, depending on how they want to manage them, couple of pretty big assets in Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. Like 2 guys, who knows? I mean, whether it be the deadline or something else happens or you kick it down the road again, they managed to keep the assets up at this high level as opposed to, you move Tkachuk for a guy who might be able to play top 6 and some draft picks and a prospect or something like that. I think they managed to kind of, I still really like it for Florida. I'll say that. I really like it for Florida, but Calgary checks some significant boxes here with this deal.
Yeah, it's funny. After thinking about it, I thought, wow, at least now we know who organized the trip to the strip club night before a game in that Tampa series. Because I couldn't understand why they got rid of these guys. No, man, it's cool to rebuild on the fly there. Like, I think the biggest concern was if you're going to trade a player like Tkachuk, you're going to have to get something really substantial back, and they did that tremendously. I think the length and term is scary, to say the least, but at least you do have these pieces where hopefully I like the Battle of Alberta, so hopefully the Flames, it's not going into a rebuild, but rebuilding on the fly if it does come to that case. But both of them did say that they're willing to sign longer term in Calgary, and it's as we saw, sometimes it's nice to come home after playing in the U.S. The U.S. is a great place to go down. There's cool things about it, and playing down there, it's a completely in a different country. It's fun, but there is a thing to come home too, and I mean, I feel kind of bad for. It's weird because Oiler fans seem to online say they feel bad for the city of Calgary. Like, Oiler fans are good, like Edmontonians, because we've been getting ripped about our city by Calgary, and I didn't see a lot of they weren't too sentimental through the decade of darkness with Edmonton, and no one wanted to play here, and what a better city Calgary was. So it was kind of a little bit of Chunga's revenge with 2 Americans leaving for their home country.
Cass, what about, with Johnny Gaudreau, he's there for a decade. You offer him more money than he took elsewhere. And, he wrote his article and he said, this was just the time. What do you have to prove to Jonathan Huberdeau, or what do you have to do with Jonathan Huberdeau? Because if you can keep Huberdeau around now, you'd be keeping him around through his 30s as opposed to Tkachuk through his 20s, and that's a significant difference. But Huberdeau is an elite offensive player, and maybe he's not as elite without Barkov, but he'll be playing with Lindholm on the top line and being put in every single offensive situation. But if you're Calgary, avoid having this happen to you again, or is you just have to hope that this is a player that doesn't mind being there with you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to win, don't you?
Yeah, but that didn't even work for Johnny Gaudreau either,
I know, but Johnny Gaudreau is an American, with ties to the East Coast, so that to me is the difference. But for Huberdeau to stay, I think you got to win. I mean, do you have to get rid of Sutter?
I don't know. I don't know how Sutter factors into this whole thing.
How does he factor into it? He factors massively into it. Do
you think he was a factor with Johnny and Tkachuk wanting to leave?
Yes.
You do,
yes.
Hey? Yeah.
Without question.
Okay, but they had good years with him.
Look how they were utilized in the playoffs. Good year or not, they didn't want. I don't think they
didn't load him up. Yeah.
Didn't they were just like, okay, well, do we want to deal with this guy for more years? If they sign him long term, is this the guy I want as my coach for another 2 or 3 or 4 years? Because can I deal with that? I think the answer is no, specifically for Gaudreau, more so than Tkachuk. I think it factors into it huge. So could it factor into them signing long term? Maybe. I don't know, but I think the big thing is you have to have success. So you got to win around in the playoffs. You're coming from a Florida organization that was loaded, that lost to Tampa, obviously, but still a massive playoff contender for next year, Stanley Cup contender for next year, and you're going to Calgary. And if Calgary can become that contender, I think you have much better chance of them signing longer deals.
Gage, do you think that's going to be enough? Like if Calgary, let's say Calgary gets to the second or third round of the playoffs, do you think that's enough for, and they're obviously not shy of offering a shitload of money because they did it with Johnny Gaudreau, and I would think they're even more willing to do it with Huberdeau because he's the return you got for Tkachuk. Like he's in the driver's seat as far as the contract goes here, I would think. So that's good news for the player. But if they get to the conference final, do you think they go to Jonathan Huberdeau and go, and we got $80 million for you? Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, Cass, I have to agree with Cass. It does go into you have to think about playing for certain people over a certain period of time. And I think Sutter was kind of not the entire reason why those two left, but I'm sure it factored in a little bit. If it looks like they're close to competing, or like they're going to be a very competitive team next year, I think they'll be right there. But yeah, I think I would say it has to look like they are close to winning a Stanley Cup for them to resign for sure.
Cass, do you think the Flames, after this deal, even without Johnny Gaudreau, do you think they're still the Oilers' biggest roadblock in the Pacific? Is that clear cut after this deal or not so much? Because their blue line is better. I mean, their blue line was already pretty decent. Now you bring in Weegar, like that's a pretty solid back end, right? From the goalie and the blue line, that's really good. Do you see them as let's just say, and we'll get into division previews and everything, but let's just say the Oilers are at the top for now. Considering what they accomplished last year, what they managed to keep around, I don't think it's a homer take to be like, Oilers are the best team in the Pacific. Is Calgary a clear-cut number 2, or are they involved in a battle here with a few teams? I've had some people say the Kings could be a team that pushes up there.
Kings are a team that I think will be on a little bit of an upswing here. I mean, the Golden Knights, I just think Golden Knights had a horrible season last year and injuries and some issues. Like
still a nice roster.
Still a nice roster. Could they be? If I was going to pick, I would pick between Calgary and Vegas. I mean, I hope it's Calgary because I think that makes it the most interesting and it makes it the most fun. You still lost Johnny Gaudreau. So you still lost a 100-point guy. I guess it depends on how the team plays and performs. It really does. They're going to be a defense-first team, I think, now moving forward. Their defensive group is really good. Goaltending is going to be really good. Yeah, I'm just speaking my thoughts out loud. They still may be the biggest roadblock in the Pacific. I still think they may be. If they can continue to perform under Sutter and they don't kind of cave to the constant pressure to play that style of hockey, and by cave I mean like just kind of go screw this, we're done with it. Then they certainly could be.
I'm tempted to say the Kings, but I still think it's Calgary. But Gager, where do you come out on this?
I think it's the Kings. I'll say it. I think what we saw last year, with the emergence of that Dursey too, and a healthy
Drew Doughty.
That's and they've got 2 pretty good goalies still. Quick's still good. Their young guy, his name escapes me right now, but he took the reins for a while there. The one thing, it was such a, like you say, the 100 points for Johnny Gaudreau, and I know Cass, when we talked about do you get rid of him a few years ago, and how do you replace the 80 points? I think the symbiotic relationship between Lindholm, Tkachuk, and Gaudreau was the reason that they were all able to hit those 100.
It just was such a good
gel,
the line.
Yeah. So you obviously Barkov and Huberdeau are the same type of relationship, playing together and knowing each other like that. I look to Lindholm. I've always thought he is a great player. Like Huberdeau and Lindholm are going to be a great combination. But really, when you look at it, you said it before, Dusty, the defense are better. They have a great goalie in Markstrom. They're not going to need to score 4 or 5 goals to win games, so that do they need 100-point? I don't think so. 280-point players at that point, I think they still win a ton of games.
That's enough if you've got a great blue line and a good goaltender. I mean, you have a couple guys that get you 80, 85 points. You'd probably be okay. So that's the Calgary side of this thing. Let's flip over to the Florida side. And, they give up a couple of guys who are UFAs at the end of next season, and, they get some certainty. They've got Tkachuk locked up for the next 8 seasons. Cass, considering the success that this team has had in the regular season year after year and then disappointment in the playoffs year after year, this is a significant shift from a style of player to likely the style of play. They've got a new head coach. I'm not going to say they're going to be an entirely different team, but they bring a different look to the table now, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I think they look at the Tampa series and they go, we were a really good regular season team. We need to be a good regular season team or a really good one and a really good playoff team. And evaluating the style that Tkachuk can play, they look at it and they go, okay, here's a guy that puts up points but plays a aggressive style that bodes well for the playoffs and bodes well for, a 7-game series. And I think they look at this and they go, this is the type of player that's going to bring a little bit more grit maybe than the way that Huberdeau plays, but still bring a lot of offensive punch to a lineup that is built for offense. So it's, I think that's where they looked at it. Certainty, I think, is the big thing. They get some certainty for a long time and cost certainty as well. But you replace points and you bring a little bit more of an edge. And I think that's what they wanted. They're a freewheeling team. They're an offensive team, and he still has a capacity to bring that, but he also brings just a little bit more grit to the lineup. And I think most teams that are successful in the playoffs usually have some guys that are skilled, that are able to play that way. And that's what Tkachuk brings.
On the ice, Gager, when the puck drops opening night, considering they don't have Huberdeau, they don't have Mackenzie Weegar on their back end, and their blue line is not as strong. It's as simple as that. But they do have Matthew Tkachuk. Do you think the Florida Panthers in the regular season this year are a better team than they were last year, or are they going to sacrifice that a bit to try to win when it really matters with a different type of player who's built for the postseason?
Yeah, I think their overall regular season team has shifted to more of a playoff team with the addition of Tkachuk. And I mean, they still have Aaron Ekblad too, right? That's a pretty good defenseman to have.
Well, and he was banged up last year too, right? Late.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of the Evander Kane kind of scenario, Dusty, where you get a guy with a little bit more sandpaper and willing to draw more people into the fight, right? So he's going to be a way bigger agitator and just bring that kind of, I mean, when you look back and you watch that series, Pat Maroon was a big part of that. The constant chatter, the finishing checks, getting under their skin, everyone shoulder checking when Maroon's on the ice, right? He was instrumental in winning that series against the Panthers, and now they finally have a player that can maybe get the other team off their game a little bit and wanting to do something that they probably shouldn't be, instead of going to the ballet before a game.
Can't wait to see how this turns out from a numbers perspective from the teams, because these are heavyweight players, man. Huberdeau and Tkachuk, 2 of the top 10 offensive players, top 15 players. I guess we can get to that here. That'll tie us into our franchise 32, which is something that we're going to look at over the next couple of weeks. We are all putting together a list of 32 players. If you were starting a franchise today, who would the top 32 players be in the league that you build a franchise around? So if you're a general manager and they're saying, hey, we're doing a draft to start all the franchises again, who are the top 32 picks in this thing? And, we're not going to reveal too much just yet, but, my list is done. All of our lists are done. I'm going to tabulate them together, and then we're going to drop the 2 guys franchise 32. Cass, as you built your list on this thing, was there anything that kind of stood out to you, or was there something that was extremely difficult about putting it together?
Weighing ages and experience, because you got to think starting today. So the winning today versus, winning in 2 years or 3 years. Are you building it for winning right now, like in this moment, or are you building this to be a successful team for the next 5 to 10? That to me was a big thing, because you're trying to balance that out. Yeah, you're trying to balance that out. As you said, I think I ended up with a lot more D-men than I initially thought.
When you sent your list, and I was like, holy smokes, Cass loves a lot of these D-men. I mean, and they're all D-men who were picked like in the top 5-6 picks, right? But there's just a lot of guys that you think maybe you stabilize your franchise around.
Yeah. I went. I mean, we'll get into it, but I went heavy with that. Just I think I look at the evidence of teams that have been successful in the playoffs that have won cups typically have that cornerstone defenseman, and so I think I weighted that a little bit heavier to say, okay, you know, there's forwards I think you build your team around. Certainly some of them that you would do it first before defensemen, but there's a lot of defensemen probably higher up on my list than a lot of people would have. Where they might take a forward to build a team around. So yeah, it was interesting to sit and really think through. And you're looking at, yes, I look at analytics, and you look at those analytics too for all those guys. Like you look at that because it helps you evaluate, the past, what a player has done. And so, unpacking some of that is helpful. But yeah, it was a fun list to make, guys.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing once we put all the numbers together to see where it all sort of falls out. Gager, of course, sent list, so his is over. I think he had 29 goalies on the top 32, so that was not surprising. Gager, to be honest with you, my list, which is almost complete, goaltenders are pretty scarce on my list right now. I'll say that.
Mine too.
Well, I had a few on there, but
yeah,
like I think I mentioned before, I just think that there's not a lot of franchise goalies available anymore. There's like you can probably count them on your hand. There's a lot of really good goalies, I could say, but to center your team around, it's so difficult. We talked about how much really cap space you should be putting into two goalies. Man, it was my first list was a mess because I went with guys in their prime, but now we just kind of decided who would out of current players now. So it's
some young guys. Some young guys
some
made
really
this list.
Young guys in there. So it was cool because I think the thing that started it all off is we were talking about Tkachuk and how many teams where would he land in the rebuild.
That is where the idea popped up last week. Yeah,
with his unique. He has a very unique set of skills, not unlike Liam Neeson, right? So it's going to be fun. This is going to be really cool. I can't wait to see Cass's picks, and we'll fight over who's got them.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that next week. Cass had a travel day yesterday. I had a travel day Thursday, so we're only doing one episode of Two Guys and a Goalie this week. We wanted to kind of tee up the franchise 32 because we're going to debut that next week. We'll go 32 to 21, 20 to 11, and then 10 to 1 over the next. And we might even break up the top 10 a little bit more to discuss it. So it should be a pretty fun episode next Monday as we start to dive into this. We've done a few off seasons with Two Guys and a Goalie, which of course is presented to you by our great partners at CoolBet. We've never dove into a list like this that we could duplicate every single offseason. So it should be pretty fun. Boys, enjoy the rest of your day. And who knows, maybe we got another blockbuster to talk about next time we meet up as well. Cass, have a good time in that hotel, my man.
I will. It's beautiful. Beautiful in there.
See you later, boys.